This isn't just any ordinary movie. In this movie, me, Gabrielle Salama, will be telling you about our world and how globalization has affected it. And I'll be telling you what major events contributed and hindered the process of globalization. But if I were you, I'd be asking myself, what the heck is globalization? Is it a TV show? A video game? No, but those are contributions to globalization. Well, a man by the name of Thomas Friedman defined it as an interweaving of markets, technology, information, systems in a way that is shrinking the world from a size medium to a size small, and enabling each of us to reach around the world farther, faster, deeper, and cheaper than ever before, and enabling the world to reach into each of us farther, faster, deeper, and cheaper than ever before. But what major events occurred in order for globalization to be what it is today? And were they good or were they bad? Despite hindrances such as the rise of communism, World Wars I and II, and the Great Depression, the world still grew effectively smaller during the periods the 1800s to the 2000s, due to technological advancements during and after the Industrial Revolution, the growth of global economy, and imperialism. What is communism? A system of social organization in which all economic and social activity is controlled by a totalitarian state, dominated by a single and self-perpetuating political party. How was the spread of communism a hindrance to globalization? Western countries did not want anything to do with the communist countries, which caused a decrease in trade and global communication. In a communist country, there is forced equality on the people. There is no opportunity for growth, because not everyone wants to have the same social status. Back then, when money was not as valuable as it is today, people were willing to work for their land because they wanted to make it better and live in communities rather than be judged by their social status and who did what or what more for their country. People were owned by the government and were kept into poverty their whole lives. They had no chance to ever accomplish anything, leading to failure in ideas and growth in order for globalization to happen. Why did globalization happen anyway? Well, communism has its positives and its negatives. Not only did it hinder globalization, but also contributed. After a while of having the feeling of ownership and never being able to move up and become more powerful as a person, the people started to fight back. As people fought for their rights to be individuals, more and more strikes started to occur. People wanted to live their own life and succeed in what they did instead of always having to be the same as others. As people came together to retaliate, globalization happened. People that lived in communist countries and even people who did not, but wanted to help, had something in common to fight back for, which spread around the world, bringing people closer together. How did World War I hinder globalization? It hindered the growth of globalization because it separated countries from one another in battle. Some countries were allied with one another, but others weren't. Their fear contributed to the stop of trade embargoes, non-communication, and economic cooperation. Cities were destroyed from bits to pieces. The effects of World War I caused an outrageous spending on the rebuilding of cities, having to waste their time remaking instead of spending the money on progressing in new inventions and new technologies, putting a pause on the growth of globalization. But why did globalization still happen? Nevertheless, it unified allied countries with one another, while also rapidly expanding technology. The war expanded upon military technology, communication technology, and transportation technology. Throughout the war, specific machinery was invented in order to fight and conquer, such as U.S. boats, submarines, machine guns, and steel ships. Communications and transportation technology rapidly expanded due to the race to develop superior technology in order to win. Although in a time of war, governments were watching other countries more than ever before. This outward international focus had a globalizing effect. Allied countries opened up new systems, trade routes, and economic agreements, still leading on to today, which made the world feel like a smaller place.
World War II hindered globalization due to the mass genocide of the Jews. This caused a separation with nations looking down on one another, people scared to be in their own cities, and the amount of money that had to be spent on having to rebuild. Every business, person, and service in Europe was involved, and restricted to most of their rights, making it hard for people to make a living for themselves and their family, while also decreasing the spread of ideas and growth because most were in hiding, enabling expansion. One would think when Jews were put into the ghettos that ideas would grow and new inventions would arise, but it was quite the opposite because they were stuck in small cities with nothing new coming in or out. People were fighting for their lives and had no time to think of new things to contribute to globalization. In spite of this, globalization still happened because it brought allied countries together to fight for their land and the creation of Israel, bringing people from the diaspora together. As well as technology, competition erupted between countries for the atomic bomb. Weaponry was invented, such as ships and rocketry, as well as logistical support in order for the soldiers to be able to travel, such as aircrafts and trains. It was now easier for armies to travel great distances without having to be such an intense voyage. Communication and intelligence became of a greater interest as the war continued, including the invention of devices for navigation, communication, espionage, and remote sensing. As well as chemical medicines and more effective techniques, medicine became more advanced day by day. As a result of World War II, the United States was no longer in such a Great Depression. It provided people with opportunities for jobs to build weaponry for the war, and the U.S. had the chance to sell certain necessities, such as petroleum, different metals, and other machinery. This gave the U.S. a push to get back on their feet, and progress in economy and technology. These positives that were improving were spreading around the world, not only being used for in the war, but also defense. Women became more accepted